Thanks for joining us today. My name is Cohen. I'm a violinist and concertmaster of the Calgary Philharmonic Orchestra, and I'm here today with my husband, Roman Rabinovich, who is a wonderful concert pianist who normally spends a lot of time traveling around the world to play recitals and concertos with orchestras.
We're so excited to spend some time with you today talking about one of our favorite pieces to play together by a composer we adore, Ludwig van Beethoven. 2020 marks the 250th anniversary of Beethoven's birth, and the whole world is celebrating. He wrote this wonderful piece, Sonata number 3 for violin and piano, when he was a very young man. At the time, he was a superstar pianist and perhaps the best pianist in all of Vienna, which is the capital of Austria. And being the best in Vienna essentially meant being the best in the world, because at that time Vienna was the center of musical and artistic creativity.
But before we get into Beethoven and too deep into his sonata for violin and piano, we want to go back a few steps, actually several steps. Do you remember learning the song Doe a Deer, a Female Deer? You might have heard it if you watched the old movie The Sound of Music, or perhaps your parents or grandparents have sung it to you. Doe a deer, a female deer, ray, a drop of golden sun, me a name I call myself, far a long, long way to run, so a needle pulling thread, la a note to follow, so tea a drink with jam and bread, then will bring us back to dough. At this point, you're likely asking yourself why we're talking about such a simple song when we've said we're going to discuss a Beethoven violin and piano sonata. The song Doe a Deer is really meant to be a teaching song. So what does it teach us? Well, it shows us two of the most basic building blocks in music, the scale and the arpeggio. In Doe a Deer, first we have the scale part. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And then at the very end of the song, we have what in musical terms we call an arpeggio, which sort of outlines the scale with the most fundamental notes.
So now, let's jump back to Beethoven, one of the great giants in all of music. One of the things that we find fascinating about his music is that a lot of it emerges from a few very simple ingredients or musical elements. He is able to take music that on its own isn't terribly exciting or interesting, and from it create some of the most thrilling moments in all of music. How does he do that? We want to demonstrate how, just like a great gardener, he takes a musical seed that consists of just a couple of notes and develop it into a lavish musical garden. We'll show you just a few tools with which Beethoven is able to accomplish this. Now, listen again to what we played in the very beginning of this video.
notes of this piece. If we played it a little slower, you'll see that what we have is just a very simple arpeggio, just like in Do-A-Dear. But the way Beethoven composes it, it's an exciting little flourish, and it becomes the DNA, the cell, or the seed for this entire movement that will follow. Let us walk through some of Beethoven's music, looking for the original seed and following how he develops this simple component into a complete and delightful organism.
So now, with your mind wrapped around the seed idea, let's listen to the first two bars where Beethoven starts with the little seed, the downward four-note arpeggio, but then immediately enlarges it, springing off the bottom note and flipping through an arpeggio all the way to the high register, and ends the little flourish with a question.
Immediately, he repeats the material, but this time with different notes, asking the question again, this time with a different inflection.
Just after asking these two questions, we get our answer. The answer comes in the form of a little melody passed between the two instruments. The piano has the motif first, and the violin copies, like a little game of chess. Beethoven uses a very simple but very effective tool to build excitement in this phrase. Sequence. We hear the same little motif repeated over and over, but each time a little higher and a little more exciting.
It's not too different from a child saying, "Mom, can I please have an ice cream? Mom, can I please have an ice cream? Mom, can I please have an ice cream?" Until the point is finally made. This sequence helps us build to a cadence, the end of a musical sentence or major landmark.
Would like to play this bit again, but this time ask you to listen to what's happening in the accompaniment in the left hand of the piano. Just like in movie music, the speed of the notes in the left hand help build the excitement. First, you'll hear the left hand playing simple 8 notes. But after a couple of bars, the speed of the accompaniment doubles, building excitement as we lurch toward the cadence. So, we've heard Beethoven's first complete sentence. Let's hear the whole thing once more. See if you can follow the first two questions, followed by the answer with the accompaniment that doubles in speed to create excitement.
In his next statement, we hear new material that consists of 3 elements. Let's take a look while keeping in mind the original seed. First, in the right hand of the piano, we have a sweet melody. Now imagine if this melody weren't so dressed up, but was just the bare bones seed. How would that sound? Now listen to how Beethoven adds what we call neighbouring notes, the notes just below and above the main notes of the arpeggio. And what's happening in the left hand? It plays the role of a jokester. You can even imagine a double bass plucking away at this bass line.
While this happens, we hear the accompaniment in the violin, adding pulse or rhythm. One could even imagine it as horses clopping their way through the cobblestones streets of Vienna that Beethoven knew so well. Now, let's hear this all together.
Now, what we've heard of this sonata so far has been relatively innocent and playful sounding. But one of the hallmarks of Beethoven's style is his sense of drama, abruptness, and surprise. In fact, those who knew Beethoven said he was an incredibly moody man, prone to sudden outbursts. And just like every other artist, one's personality can't hide in his or her music. So suddenly in the music, there's a dramatic surprise. We hear uncertainty, anxiety, even rage.
All of the ferocious arpeggios in the piano are expansions of the cell. Remember the seed? Kind of like the little innocent cell has become a wild harp. How does Beethoven achieve this? With a certain tool called modulation. We're moving to a new key, a new tonality, a tool for the composer to develop material. And soon enough, we are transported into a new musical landscape, a new theme. And guess what? It is also constructed from our original seed. Only this time, instead of moving downward, it goes up in an ascending motion. Again, this is just a reincarnation of our seed, with a bass line underneath.
By this point, you've seen all kinds of ways that Beethoven takes the most simple material and develops it by speeding it up, slowing it down, turning it inside out and upside down. And if you weren't listening so carefully, these details might pass you by and you'd still hear some really great music. But now that we're listening in such a different way and are able to see some of the same music in various disguises, we can not only enjoy the music for its beauty and excitement, but we can marvel at how it came to be and the mastery of the craftsmanship.
In the next part, we'd like to talk to you about the shape of music and how to hear music with the prism of a musical form. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and we hope that you'll join us with our next video.
Thank you.